It was a quiet evening in a small town surrounded by hills and long roads that led to nowhere. The streetlights had just started to glow and most people were heading home after work. In a corner house painted pale blue, a mother waited near the window, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea that had gone cold. She kept looking at the clock, then at the empty street outside. Her daughter, Lena, should have been home hours ago. Lena was 16, quiet but full of life. She loved drawing in her notebook, listening to music, and walking home from school instead of taking the bus. She said the long walk helped her think. Her school was only 2 miles away and she walked the same road every day. But that evening something felt wrong. The sun had already set and her phone was off. Her mother called her friends, her teachers, even the school office, but no one had seen her since the last class. At first everyone thought maybe she had gone to a friend's house. It wasn't like her, but it was easier to believe that than something worse. Her father drove around the streets, checking every corner, every small shop, asking anyone who might have seen her. But no one had. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. By nightfall, the police were called. Flashlights cut through the darkness as officers searched the road she usually took. Her bag was found near an old railway track that hadn't been used in years. The books were still inside, her notebook half open, and one page had a small doodle she'd drawn earlier that day, a sketch of a cat sitting under a tree. The sight of it made her mother cry. Something had happened and no one knew what. The next morning, the town woke up to the news. Posters with Lena's picture were put up everywhere, on bus stops, shop windows, and electric poles. Her classmates couldn't believe it. Some said they saw her laughing near the school gate. Others claimed she walked toward the park. But when the police checked cameras on nearby roads, they didn't find her anywhere. The last trace of her was near that empty railway line. The following days were filled with worry and whispers. People came forward with stories. Someone said they saw a strange car parked near the road that day. Another person said they heard a scream, but thought it was kids playing. The police followed every lead but found nothing. The woods near the railway were searched again and again. Dogs were brought in, drones were used, but still no sign of Lena. Her parents stopped sleeping properly. They sat together every night, hoping the phone would ring, hoping she would walk through the door. But days turned into weeks and hope began to fade. Reporters came to cover the story. Neighbors brought food and comfort, but none of it filled the empty space she left behind. Some people started saying maybe she ran away. Others believed something darker. Her mother refused to believe she left on her own. She wouldn't do that, she told everyone who tried to suggest it. She was happy. She loved school. She loved her art. But the longer the silence lasted, the harder it became to fight those thoughts. Then one evening, a local farmer came to the police station. He said he saw a girl who looked like Lena near an old farmhouse miles away from town. She was walking fast, barefoot, and looked frightened. The police rushed to the place, but by the time they arrived, there was no one there. They searched the area and found footprints near a dried pond, but they disappeared into the forest. This small piece of information brought back hope. The police expanded their search into the woods. Volunteers joined, and for days they combed through thick trees and muddy paths. Some found small traces, broken branches, pieces of cloth, but nothing certain. It was as if the forest had swallowed every clue. The family's house became quiet and heavy. The walls were covered with pictures of Lena, smiling, holding her sketchbook, celebrating birthdays. Her little brother kept asking when she would come back. No one had an answer. The mother still cooked her favorite meal every Sunday, just in case. The father stopped going to work for a while and spent his time driving through nearby towns, handing out missing posters and asking strangers if they had seen her. A few months later, the case grew colder. The police had no new leads. The posters started to fade in the sun and people in town moved on with their lives. But Lena's family couldn't. They still left the porch light on every night, believing she might find her way home. Then something unexpected happened. A woman living in a small village almost 40 miles away called the police. She said a thin, tired-looking girl had knocked on her door late at night, asking for water and food. The woman described her as young, quiet, and scared. When she brought her a blanket, the girl was gone. Only the glass of water remained near the door. When the police showed her pictures, the woman said the girl looked like Lena. That call reignited everything. Officers went to the area and began searching the nearby woods. They found signs that someone had been living there, a few footprints, a fire pit, and an old blanket under a broken tree. The ground had marks of someone sleeping there for several nights. It gave everyone chills to imagine Lena alone in the wilderness. The search continued for several more weeks, but again, the trail went cold. Still, her mother couldn't shake the feeling that her daughter was alive. She said she could feel it in her heart that somewhere, Lena was trying to come back home. Every time the phone rang, she would rush to it, hoping it was her. The police files grew thicker, full of reports, statements, and unanswered questions. Who was the girl the farmer saw? Was it really Lena at that woman's doorstep? If she was alive, why hadn't she come home? Some people in town stopped talking about it. They said it was better not to think about sad things. But for those who loved her, forgetting was impossible. On quiet nights, the sound of trains passing in the distance would echo through the valley, even though the old track near the woods hadn't been used in years. Some said they could still see a shadow near the tracks, a small figure standing there watching the road waiting for something. Others said it was just imagination, but deep down, everyone wanted to believe she was still out there, alive, trying to find her way back. The story of Lena became something the town carried in silence. It was told in soft voices with heavy hearts. Her picture still hung near the grocery store and in the library. Her teachers kept her desk untouched, and though months had passed, her mother still opened the window every evening, watching the road, whispering the same words before she turned off the light. "Come home, my girl. Please come home." No one could explain what really happened that day. The clues were too few, the answers too far. But the one thing that never faded was the strange feeling that the story wasn't over. Something was still waiting to be uncovered. Somewhere in the hills or the forests, the truth was hiding. Just like Lena. And while many people stopped believing, her family never did. Because sometimes even the stories that sound impossible are the ones that turn out to be real. Weeks had turned into months, and the air in the small town had grown heavy with silence. Life moved on for most people, but not for Lena's family. Her mother still kept her room the same way she left it. Her father checked the mailbox every morning as if a letter from her might appear one day. It was a rainy afternoon when a call came from the police station. They had received a strange report. A hiker who often explored the mountain trails had found something unusual. A torn piece of fabric caught in the branches of a bush near a hidden path deep inside the forest. The hiker thought it might be nothing, but when he saw the missing poster at a gas station later, he recognized the color and the small flower pattern on the fabric. It looked just like the shirt Lena had been wearing when she disappeared. When the police went to check, they found the piece of fabric still there. It was worn and weathered, but the pattern matched perfectly. That small clue brought new energy to everyone. After months of silence, there was finally something to follow. Search teams were formed again. Drones buzzed over the trees. Dogs sniffed the wet ground, and people carried flashlights through muddy paths. For 2 days, they searched the area around the spot where the fabric had been found. Then a few miles from there, one of the officers noticed something strange. A circle of stones and burnt ashes like someone had made a fire. Next to it lay a blanket, half buried under dry leaves. It was old and dirty, but it looked like someone had been using it. The police started to believe that someone might have been living there, hiding for a long time. News spread quickly. Everyone in town started talking again. Some said Lena had been lost in the woods and learned to survive alone. Others thought she might have been taken by someone and escaped. People wanted to believe she was alive, but no one could explain why she hadn't come back home if she was. A few days later, another report came in, this time from a small village almost an hour away. A woman there said that a thin, frightened girl had come to her house late at night. She knocked quietly, asked for food and water, and said she couldn't stay. The woman tried to ask her questions, but before she could get answers, the girl ran away. The woman thought she was just a lost traveler until she saw the missing girl's photo on television. She called the police immediately. The police rushed to the area. They checked every nearby shed, barn, and abandoned house. In one of the empty cabins near the forest edge, they found signs that someone had stayed there. A half-eaten apple, footprints near the window, even a small drawing on the wall made with charcoal. The drawing was of a tree with a bird on it, something Lena used to draw all the time. Her mother recognized it the moment the police showed her. Tears filled her eyes. "It's her," she whispered. "That's my daughter's drawing." It was proof that Lena was alive. She had been there, alone, scared, but alive. The town came back to life again with the news. People offered to help search. Volunteers brought food, flashlights, and tents. The forest became full of voices calling her name. Every sound of rustling leaves made hearts jump. But the forest was large and the rain soon returned, washing away tracks and clues. Still, there were moments that gave hope. One night, a police officer who was patrolling near the old railway line heard something, faint footsteps and the sound of branches breaking. When he called out, no one answered, but he was sure someone was nearby. He left food and water there just in case, and by morning the food was gone. It became clear that whoever was out there was afraid to be found, but still alive. The police began to study the map carefully. They marked every place where signs of her had appeared: the railway, the farmhouse, the forest, the cabin. Together they formed a line that stretched across the hills. It looked like she had been moving slowly, staying away from roads and people, always near water and shelter. Her mother visited the police station almost every day. She brought food for the officers and sat quietly while they discussed new plans. One day she looked out the window and said softly, "She's trying to come home. She's just scared." That thought stayed in everyone's mind. Maybe Lena wasn't lost. Maybe she didn't trust anyone anymore. Maybe something had happened to her that made her too afraid to ask for help. The local newspapers wrote about her again. People across nearby towns started recognizing her story. Some said they might have seen her walking along the side of the road. Others claimed they saw a girl sleeping under a bridge. Most reports turned out to be false, but each one kept the hope alive. Then one afternoon, a young man who worked at a gas station near the main highway made a call to the police. He said a girl had come by 2 nights before. She looked tired, dirty, and nervous. She bought a small bottle of water and a packet of biscuits, then left quickly before anyone could talk to her. He remembered her because she dropped a small piece of paper on the counter, a drawing of a cat and a tree. When the police checked the security footage, the picture was blurry, but the outline looked like her. It was enough to make everyone believe she was still moving, still fighting to survive. Her mother cried when she heard the news. "She's alive," she said again and again. "She's alive." The police widened their search across nearby villages. They put up new posters, and this time the picture was recent, made by an artist who adjusted her image to show what she might look like after months outside. Her hair was shorter, her cheeks thinner, but her eyes were still the same. The story spread everywhere. News reporters visited the town again, but her family avoided the cameras. They just wanted her back. Late one night, the rain started again, tapping against the windows of the family's house. Her mother sat near the door like she did every night. She left a small lantern burning outside. It was something she had started doing after the first few weeks. She said the light would guide her daughter home. As the thunder rolled in the distance, she thought she heard something outside, footsteps soft but real. Her heart pounded as she opened the door, but there was no one there. Only the sound of rain and the dim glow of the streetlight. Yet on the wet ground she noticed something that made her freeze. A footprint, small, muddy, and fresh. She called her husband, who ran outside with a flashlight, searching the yard and the road. The footprints led toward the corner of the street, then disappeared into the dark. The police were called again, but the rain had already begun to wash everything away. Still, for the first time in months, the family felt something they hadn't felt in a long time. Hope mixed with fear, the kind that makes your heart race but keeps you moving forward. The officers promised to keep watching the area, setting quiet patrols near the neighborhood. Everyone in the town started leaving porch lights on too. They said if she was trying to find her way home, she would see the light and know people were waiting for her. And somewhere out there in the cold woods or near the quiet roads, maybe Lena saw those lights flickering in the distance, tiny signs that told her she hadn't been forgotten. Because even though her story had become a mystery to everyone else, to her family it was still real, still alive, still unfinished. And while no one could say where she had been or what had happened to her, the one thing that felt certain was this: she was closer than ever. The town was quiet again, but this time the silence was not from giving up. It was the kind of silence that came from waiting. Everyone had a feeling that something was about to happen. The lights left on at night had become a habit. Every porch glowed softly, as if the whole town was calling out to one girl who had been gone for too long. Then, one cold morning in early winter, the police received a call from a gas station just outside town. A girl had been found there, alone, shivering and weak. She looked thin, Her clothes were torn and her eyes seemed lost. When the officer asked her name, she whispered, "Lena." The officer froze for a moment, then gently helped her into the patrol car and drove her to the hospital. Word spread faster than the wind. By the time her parents arrived, the hospital was surrounded by people. Some came to see if it was really her. Others came just to pray. When her mother saw her, she could barely breathe. Lena was sitting on a hospital bed wrapped in a blanket. She looked pale and fragile, but her face was still the same, only quieter, as if she had seen too much. Her mother ran to her and held her tight. For a long moment, Lena didn't move, then slowly, her arms lifted and she hugged her back. Everyone cried that day. The doctors, the nurses, even the officers who had searched for her for months. After all that time, she was finally back, but joy was soon followed by confusion. When the police tried to ask her questions, where she had been, who she was with, how she survived, Lena stayed silent. She looked away, her hands twisting the edge of the blanket. When she tried to speak, her voice trembled and she stopped. The doctor said she needed rest, that she was too weak and frightened to talk. Days passed. She began to eat small meals again, sleep through the night, and draw in the notebook her mother brought her. The first thing she drew was a house with lights on and a path leading home. Her mother cried when she saw it. But even though her body was healing, her mind seemed far away. Sometimes she would wake up suddenly in the middle of the night, her eyes wide open as if she was still hearing, something that others couldn't. The nurses said she often whispered in her sleep, short words like run or quiet, but never anything clear. Her parents tried not to push her. They just sat by her side every day, waiting for her to feel safe enough to talk. After 2 weeks, she finally began to share small pieces of her story, not in full sentences but in drawings and single words. She drew a small house with boarded windows, a dark room with no lights and a door with a lock. Then she drew a picture of a forest and a moon. When the police asked what those meant, Lena pointed to the first drawing and said softly, "They kept me there." No one moved for a moment. The air in the room turned heavy. The officers exchanged glances, careful not to scare her. "Who kept you there?" one of them asked gently. But Lena didn't answer. She just shook her head and closed the notebook. It was hard for everyone to believe. People in town had made up so many stories. Some thought she had run away, others believed she got lost. But the idea that she had been held somewhere felt unreal. Still, her drawings were clear. The more she drew, the more it looked like she had escaped from a place no one knew about. Her father sat with the police trying to piece together her clues. In one drawing, she had sketched a dog, a red barn, and a tall tree beside it. That detail caught the detective's attention. There was a small farm about 20 miles away that matched that description. It belonged to an older couple who lived quietly, rarely seen in town. They owned a repair shop and were known to keep to themselves. When the police went to question them, the couple acted calm and polite. They said they didn't know anything about the missing girl and that they had never seen her. But one of the officers noticed something odd. There was a shed behind their house with a heavy lock on the door. When asked what was inside, they said it was just old tools and equipment. The officers didn't have enough proof to open it, so they left, planning to return with a warrant. But when they came back the next day, the house was empty. The couple was gone. It was as if they had disappeared overnight. Inside the house, police found strange traces. A blanket similar to the one from the forest, a few empty food cans, and a small bracelet that Lena's mother recognized immediately. It was the one she had given Lena on her birthday, engraved with a tiny heart. That discovery shocked everyone. It proved that Lena had been telling the truth, even if her words were few. But the people who had kept her there were now missing, and no one knew where they went. When the police told Lena what they had found, she started crying quietly. She didn't look surprised, only tired, like she already knew. She whispered, "They left before I could run far." That one sentence broke her mother's heart. It meant Lena had escaped, not just wandered off. She had fought her way out of something terrible and somehow survived alone for months. News spread again, and soon everyone was talking about the mysterious couple and the girl who had returned. But not everyone believed the story. Some people said she was confused or that her memory was wrong. Others said it didn't make sense. How could she live in the forest all that time? How could no one have noticed? But her parents didn't care what anyone said. They knew what she had been through, even if others didn't. Lena stayed home after leaving the hospital, slowly trying to return to a normal life. She didn't go outside much, but she loved sitting near the window watching the road. Sometimes she would draw again. Not sad pictures anymore, but small things like flowers, houses, and the sky. Her younger brother would sit beside her, asking questions she never answered, but she would smile softly at him. Still, she spoke very little about those missing months. The only time she talked about it was one evening when her father asked her gently, "How did you find your way back?" She looked at him for a long time, then said quietly, "I followed the lights." He didn't understand at first. "What lights?" he asked. "The lights in the houses," she whispered. "You left them on." And in that moment he realized, all those nights when the whole town kept their porch lights burning, thinking she might see them, she actually did. The lights had guided her home. It became a story everyone in town remembered. The girl who followed the lights back home. The girl whose story sounded too unbelievable to be real. And yet, it was. Even though her journey was not fully known and some parts were still a mystery, one thing was clear. She had survived something that could have broken anyone else. The investigation continued, and police searched across other towns for the missing couple. But Lena's family didn't want to think about them anymore. They wanted peace, not revenge. Every night when the house grew quiet, her mother would stand by the window just like she did when Lena was gone. But this time she wasn't waiting. She was watching her daughter sitting safely in her room, drawing under the soft light. The same light that once guided her home now kept her safe. And though many people still couldn't believe her story, the ones who loved her didn't need to. They had her back, and that was enough. The first few weeks after Lena came home were quiet and filled with careful joy. Her family spoke softly around her, afraid that too many questions might make her shut down again. She smiled sometimes, but it was a small kind of smile, the kind that came and went quickly. She spent most of her days sitting near the window, holding a pencil and her notebook, drawing shapes and faces that no one could understand. Outside, the town was still whispering about her. People at the grocery store, the post office, and the gas station all had their own version of her story. Some said she had been kidnapped. Others said she had run away and made everything up after she came back. Everyone had an opinion, but very few had the truth. The police, however, had not stopped working. They were still searching for the missing couple who had disappeared the moment Lena returned. The more they looked into their past, the stranger things became. The man had used a fake name for years, and no one knew where he originally came from. Their repair shop had closed suddenly, and their bank accounts were empty. The police believed they had planned their escape. One afternoon, 2 detectives came to visit Lena again. They brought her a few photographs, places, cars, and faces, hoping she might recognize something. She looked at each picture carefully, her hands trembling a little. Then she pointed to one picture, an old red barn near a wide field. Her voice was barely a whisper when she said, "That's where they stopped." That small clue was enough. The next day, officers searched the area around that barn. Inside, they found more evidence. Old ropes, pieces of cloth, and marks on the wooden floor that looked like someone had been staying there for a long time. They also found another one of Lena's drawings folded between the boards, a small bird sitting on a branch. Her mother cried again when the police showed it to her. It was like the forest had been slowly giving back everything that belonged to Lena. The discovery made the police even more determined to find the couple. They checked abandoned houses, roadside motels, and nearby towns. Slowly, a clearer picture began to form. The couple had been seen in another city, working under new names, pretending to be travelers. When the police tried to track them down, they were already gone. But each clue led to another. Lena's story began to spread across the country. News reporters came to the town again, asking questions, filming outside her house, trying to get a glimpse of her. Her parents refused all interviews. They said their daughter had been through enough and needed peace, not cameras. Still, strangers began sending letters to the family, some to offer help, others to say how much her story had touched them. People sent gifts, drawings, and even flashlights saying, "May the light always guide her." Lena's mother kept all the letters in a box under her bed. On nights when Lena couldn't sleep, they would read some of them together. The kind words from strangers seemed to comfort her. Sometimes Lena even smiled again, but despite the love and support, there was still something missing. the truth. The police needed Lena to tell them everything she could remember, but each time they tried, she stopped halfway. She would start talking, then fall silent, staring at the wall. Her father began to notice that she often looked scared when certain things happened, like when a car passed by too slowly, or when she heard dogs barking in the distance. It was as if small sounds carried memories that she didn't want to remember. So the family focused on helping her heal. They took slow walks around the neighborhood, planted flowers in the backyard, and played her favorite music softly in the evenings. Step by step, she began to feel safe again. One day, while walking with her father, Lena stopped near the park and looked at the sky. "I thought I'd never see this again," she said quietly. Her father didn't ask what she meant. He just nodded and said, "You're home now. You'll see it every day." But far from the calm of their small town, the investigation was still moving forward. Weeks later, the police received a tip. A car matching the couple's description had been seen near a border checkpoint. Inside the trunk, officers found several items, including a small bracelet with the same heart-shaped charm as Lena's. It was proof that the same people had been involved. The police issued a nationwide search. Their photos appeared in newspapers and on television, but the couple managed to stay hidden. When the news reached Lena's family, her mother broke down. "I just want this to be over," she said. "I don't want to see their faces. I only want her to forget." Lena overheard those words. That night, she sat beside her mother and said softly, "I don't want to forget. I just don't want to be scared anymore." Her words stayed with her parents. They realized that healing didn't mean erasing the past, it meant learning to live beyond it. Months passed. The snow melted and spring returned. The trees outside Lena's window began to bloom again. She started going back to her art classes, though she stayed quiet and preferred to sit at the back. Her teacher treated her gently, never asking questions, just letting her draw whatever she wanted. One day, she drew something different, not a sad scene, not the woods or the dark rooms she used to sketch, but a bright picture of her family standing under a shining sky. When she showed it to her teacher, the woman said, "That's beautiful." And for the first time in a long while, Lena smiled without hiding it. Meanwhile, the police had new leads. They had found a storage unit rented under a false name belonging to the couple. Inside were several old belongings, boxes, papers, and a few personal things that connected them to other missing persons cases. It became clear that Lena's story wasn't just about her anymore. There were others before her, but the officers decided not to tell her the full details yet. They wanted her to heal, not to relive the fear. Back in the small blue house, life was slowly returning to normal. The family started having dinner together again, laughing softly at small things. Sometimes Lena joined in, sometimes she didn't. But even when she was quiet, the warmth in her eyes was returning. Her little brother, who used to ask every day where she had gone, now just said, "You're never leaving again, right?" And she would smile and say, "No, never." The world outside their home might still be full of questions, but inside they finally had peace, at least for now. Still, every now and then, when the wind blew through the trees, Lena would glance outside, her eyes following the road as if remembering something. It was as though part of her still belonged to the wild places she had once walked alone. Her mother noticed it too. One evening she asked, "What are you thinking about?" Lena looked out the window and said softly, "That night when I ran, I didn't know where I was going. I just kept walking. But I remember seeing the sky open up after the rain. It was the first time I believed I might make it." Her mother reached over and took her hand. "You did make it," she said. "You're here." And Lena nodded, her eyes full of quiet strength. It was true. She had made it, against fear, against darkness, against doubt. But outside their peaceful home, the story was far from over. The police were getting closer to finding the couple, and soon the world would learn everything that Lena had tried so hard to forget. Months passed quietly after that spring. Life seemed peaceful again in the little blue house at the end of the road. The garden had grown full of color, and every morning birds sang near Lena's window. Her parents began to believe that maybe, just maybe, time was finally healing everything. But deep down they knew the story was not fully over. The world had moved on, but the investigation hadn't. The police were still searching for the couple who had vanished after Lena's return. Every few weeks they called to give small updates, new traces, new leads, but no real ending. Lena didn't ask about it anymore. She focused on school, on her drawings, and on simple things that made her feel safe again, like baking cookies with her mother, feeding the stray cats in the yard, or reading to her younger brother before bed. She didn't talk much, but her silence no longer felt heavy. It felt calm, like the quiet after a storm. Then one morning her father received a call that changed everything again. The couple had been found, far away in another state, living under different names. The police had tracked them through an old friend who recognized their pictures from the news. They were taken into custody. When the news reached the family, a strange stillness filled the room. Lena's mother sat down slowly. Her father didn't say a word for a long time, and Lena just stared at her hands. Her father finally asked her softly, "Do you want to know what happens next?" Lena thought for a moment before she said, "Only if I have to." The police explained that they wanted Lena's help one last time, to confirm what she remembered so the case could finally be closed. At first, her parents refused. They said she had been through enough, but Lena surprised them. "I'll go," she said quietly. "I'm not scared anymore." So, a few days later, she walked into the police station again, the same place she had been taken to when she first returned home. This time she stood tall. The officers were gentle with her, asking only what was needed. She answered calmly. She didn't cry. She didn't shake. When they showed her a photograph of the couple, she looked at it for a long time and said simply, "That's them." And with that, it was done. The police thanked her and promised she would never have to see them again. The couple would face justice, and their story, the real one, would finally be told. Outside the station, the air was warm and quiet. Lena stood by the steps looking at the sky. For the first time, she didn't feel the weight of the past pressing on her shoulders. She took a deep breath and it felt like freedom. After that day, everything began to change again, but in a better way. People stopped whispering when they saw her. The town no longer treated her like a mystery or a ghost from a story. Instead, they smiled and waved when she passed by. At school, things were still slow, but she made a new friend, a kind girl who never asked about her past. They sat together at lunch, talking about simple things like favorite songs and books. It felt normal, and that was all Lena wanted. Her art teacher, who had quietly watched her grow braver each day, encouraged her to submit one of her drawings to a youth exhibition in the city. Lena hesitated at first, but her father said, "You should do it. Let people see how far you've come." So she did. The drawing she chose was special, a picture of a path through the woods leading toward the sunrise. It wasn't dark or sad. It was bright and full of hope. When the exhibition opened, her drawing hung in the center of the room with a small card that said, "By Lena, inspired by finding her way home." Visitors stopped to look at it. Some smiled, some even had tears in their eyes, but Lena didn't stay to see that. She said she didn't need people's reactions. Just knowing her art was enough. That evening, her mother told her, "You've turned your pain into something beautiful." And for once, Lena didn't deny it. She said, "I just wanted to draw the way it feels to finally breathe again." As time went on, things settled into a gentle rhythm. The family moved past the fear, the sleepless nights, and the constant noise from the outside world. They learned to live again, to laugh, to plan trips, to enjoy small joys without looking over their shoulders. There were still hard days, of course. Sometimes Lena would wake from a bad dream, her heart racing. But now she had words to talk about it. She would sit with her mother on the porch, drink warm tea, and tell her what she had seen in her dreams. Slowly, the dreams began to fade. Years passed quietly. The story that once filled newspapers and news reports became just a distant memory to everyone, except those who lived it. One summer evening, as the sun set behind the trees, Lena sat with her father in the garden. He asked, "Do you ever think about that time anymore?" She looked at the sky and said, "Sometimes, but not the way I used to. It's like a book I finished reading. I remember the story, but I don't live inside it anymore." Her father smiled. "That's a good way to put it." Then Lena added, "I think everything that happened made me understand life better. Some people get lost, but it doesn't mean they stay lost forever." Her father nodded slowly, his eyes soft with pride. "You found your way back. That's what matters." And he was right. In the years that followed, Lena grew stronger, more confident. She started volunteering at a local center that helped missing children's families. She didn't tell them her story in detail, but she listened to theirs. Sometimes just her quiet presence gave them hope. One day, a woman hugged her and said, "You give me strength. You look like someone who's been through darkness and still found the light." Lena smiled and replied, "Maybe that's what we're all trying to do, find the light again." Her art began to reflect that same feeling. Every new piece she made had warmth in it. Sunlight, open skies, children running freely. People often said they could feel peace in her drawings, like she was painting hope itself. And maybe she was. Her story, once doubted by many, became a quiet legend in her town. Not because of the fear or the mystery, but because of her strength. People no longer said, "the lost girl." They said, "the girl who came back and taught us how to keep going." On the anniversary of her return, her family always lit a small candle by the window. Not as a symbol of sadness, but as a reminder of survival. Her mother would whisper, "For the light that never went out." Lena would smile and add, "And for everyone still trying to find theirs." That night, she often looked out at the stars, calm, steady, unafraid. The world was still full of unknowns, but she had learned that no darkness lasts forever. There is always a way home, even when it feels impossible. And somewhere deep inside, she carried that lesson like a quiet flame, one that no one could ever take from her again.